in how people establish and create and maintain their sense of identity. Now, what I think I want to try to suggest to you is that traditional religion is a psychotechnology. This is a term that is now starting to be used. I thought I coined it, and then I found that people had already been using it, this sort of academic information. Oh, well. Now, what's a psychotechnology? What's technology? A tool is something that fits your biology and enhances it. What's a psychotechnology? It fits your cognition and enhances it. Okay. So presumably what would be psychotechnology for humans wouldn't be psychotechnology, I don't know, for crows or something like that. And one of the interesting things is that if you pay attention to what people are doing in a lot of religious practices, they're doing things to try and enhance this. So people make use of symbols, they make use of stories, and they make use of rituals. And I'm doing this deliberately. If you think about a symbol, it's a metaphor that's supposed to try and provoke a profound kind of insight into you. Not just a normal seeing this like that, which is what a normal metaphor is, but in a symbol, you're supposed to see deeper into reality. Stories. What are stories all about? Stories are about practicing you doing this. What the heck is a climax of a story? The climax is a story where is the moment where you have the most opportune, right, the most opportunity or the most serious threat, and you have to intervene. Stories are practice in foresight. What are rituals? Rituals are practice in enhancing mindsight, in getting people to resonate together. So, let's use some religious and non-religious examples. You got the Christian, right? You got the symbol of the cross. You got the story of the Passion, right? And you have the ritual of the Eucharist, all mutually supporting each other. My son Jason is a Unitarian, and he just did his coming of age ceremony, right? So, he's standing up, and his coming of age, he has to say what his credo is, and his credo is he's an atheist, right? Which is fine. He believes in science and things like that. I imagine I've had some influence on him. Right? But notice what's going on here. There's a symbol. There are all these adolescents. Talk about what is a better living symbol than a transition in one's state of awareness and consciousness than adolescence. There's a ritual here. They're all doing this together. We're all sharing. We all sang John Lennon's Imagine, which has got to be like the great secular hymn, right? And we all sing it. And there's this communitas. And what does he do? All of these kids get up and tell their story and how they came to pivotal decisions that changed their story. It's all there in a completely secular setting. Okay, you can do the same thing also with Buddhist and the Buddha and the story of his enlightenment and rituals around meditation. I can go over and over. This triangle is mythos, which doesn't mean myth. That's why I use the Greek word. It means the psychotechnology of these things in order to enhance and develop this. Why? Why do we need to enhance and develop this? Because if you rip it from people, they suffer a kind of significant cognitive suicide. Their sense of connection to themselves and to their world and to other people is ripped away. So, Brian Walsh did some work on the Grassy Narrows community just north of Kenora. The government went in there and decided to do what sounds like a really good thing, give them new housing. Really good housing, good roads, good electricity, access to education, well, everything. And the community was destroyed. Now, this seems to be one of the few instances where there was no ulterior motive. Now, why? The people studying it found that what actually happened is what they call domicide. By altering how people were set up with each other, by altering how houses became homes, by altering how people could develop their mythos, they screwed this up. And when they screwed this up, they screwed this up. And what happens when you screw this up? Suicide rates go up dramatically. Depression rates go up dramatically. Anxiety goes up. Domestic violence goes up. Crime goes up. And that's what happened, and the community was destroyed by giving people better housing. Now, what I'm trying to suggest to you is that cognitive science and neuroscience, cognitive science is the study of cognition, this kind of stuff, and neuroscience is the study of how the brain is operating, and they're very much being married together today. I do work in sort of both areas. Cognitive science and neuroscience is providing us with more knowledge about how all of this is working, right? And why human beings are deeply committed to this. What makes you better than a computer is this. This is what your brain invests. Your brain is not primarily a computer. As a computer, it's actually pretty pathetic. It's already been surpassed by all the machines we have. Your brain is actually a plastic. That means it's a machine that can constantly make itself into a new kind of machine. It's a plastic machine of machines, a self-designing machine, for constantly improving its ability to realize relevance. This is kind of the emerging perspective. Well, at least that's part of the title of the paper I most recently published on Relevance Realization and the Emerging Framework in Cognitive Science. The central argument of that is that this is becoming the sort of the prevailing view. Now, what does that mean? If we're starting to get a scientific understanding of this, we can develop psychotechnologies. We can develop psychotechnologies, we can even develop cyber technologies for improving all of this, for enhancing all of this. We can start talking about a naturalistic and scientifically based way of life, series of practices, psychotechnologies, cultural patterns, community organization structures, all kinds of things that could actually enhance religio. And by enhancing religio, you can enhance people's sense of connection, how deeply they feel connected to themselves, to each other, and to reality. And you can facilitate the cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and flow. And I think that counts as a damn good definition of what spirituality can be. Independent, I would argue, of having to, support certain creeds. It doesn't, sort of deny that people may assert various creeds, but the argument is largely that that's not necessary to the cultivation of the spirituality. So, if this is right, and I think I'm almost out of time, is that correct?
4 minutes, sure.
Okay, well, I can talk for it. Okay, if this argument is correct, right, and that cognitive science is on the cusp, and we really are, about getting this, and neuroscience is starting to really show us. We're getting past brain cartography. Neuroscience used to be, here's pretty pictures of what the brain does when you think of the word cat or dog, which is largely not that helpful. We're now getting to neuroscience that's starting to give us explanations of how cognition works. For example, we can watch and see what's happening in insight, and we can make sense of it. We can see processing shifting from the left hemisphere to the right hemisphere, back to and then being mediated by the prefrontal cortex. I won't burden you with all of this. But we can actually see what's happening, and we can understand why a system that was trying to do insight would shift processing around like that in the brain, redesign itself as a machine, try to alter how it's trying to realize relevance. We can understand all of this. We can start to facilitate and improve it. We can figure out what doesn't facilitate insight, like telling people to think outside the box. We can find out what does facilitate insight. Now the thing is, most of these abilities, as I tried to indicate to you, are not happening at a propositional level. They're not happening in terms of propositions you can state to yourself and others. They're not propositional knowledge. They're procedural abilities. These are abilities that involve your knowing how to do something. Okay? So many of you, I sometimes do this with my students and it frustrates them. How many of you know how to tie your shoelaces? Okay, what I typically do is ask somebody to, in just propositions and inference, tell me how to tie my shoelaces. And generally they fail. Okay, this became really apparent to me when I was teaching my eldest son, Jason, who I just mentioned, right, to ride a bike. I'm running along behind him. Here I am, at that time, all of my jeans, there they are, on a bike, going down the street. And I'm running along behind, because I'm the father, and for reasons that are unclear, males are supposed to, participate in this event in which, your offspring can be hurt in some fashion, right? So I'm running along, and I'm yelling the most useless advice to him. Keep your balance. Look around, but not too much. Pedal, but not too fast. Not too slow. Right? And you realize how useless all of this is. Now, that anecdotal evidence aside, we now have a lot of good, solid, robust, experimental evidence that insight is a purely procedural process. That it's not something that's happening propositionally. Same thing with mindsight, same thing with foresight. Doesn't mean it can't be studied scientifically, but it means that you experience it largely in an ineffable fashion. You can't put it into words. Do this. Put your finger up. Do it. Bend it. What do you do to bend your finger? I bend my finger. Yes. And now you think that's ridiculous. Watch people going through